Dirtle Magic. Thank you for tuning in to Dirtle Magic. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell if you like the content you see here today, and leave a like and share the video with someone you might think is interested. Leaving those likes really helps us out, but another way to help us out is by using our TCG Player affiliate link below. If you're looking for singles, sealed product, or gaming accessories, please consider using our link to support the channel. We also have some playmats at inkgaming.com. Go ahead and hit the link in the description to check those out. Alright, let's grab some spells and dirtle with some magic. Hello and welcome back to Dirtle Magic. Today we have the deck tech for Feather the Redeemed. Used to be that Boros could do a bunch of spell swinging and hit you really hard, but Boros became synonymous with just hitting you really hard, but Feather has redeemed Boros. Let's take a look at our commander. Our commander, Feather the Redeemed, is red, white, white for legendary 3/4 angel with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So what this does for us is it means we can use cards that target our creatures, they get into exile instead of going to the graveyard, and we essentially get to recur them. However, we still only get to use them once a turn. With that, let's take a look at the categories we'll be covering today. Today we'll be covering the supply line, Unbreakable, War Mages, and Double Strike. First up, we have the all-important supply line. With a Feather deck, we use cantripping spells to draw us more cards so we can get to the things we need faster. A few of the more offensive cantrips we have in Feather are Expedite, Psychotic Fury, Guided Strike, and Fist of Flame. Expedite gives our creature haste and draws us a card. Crimson Wisp does the same thing except it turns the creature red. Psychotic Fury gives target multicolored creature double strike tons of turns, so not good with too many cards in the deck besides Feather, but also draws us a card, and Feather is our commander, so it will usually be around. Guided Strike gives a 1/0 and first strike until end of turn, draw a card, and then Fist of Flame draws us an additional card first, then gives our creature a 1/0 bonus per card we drew this turn, which can really add up with a bunch of other cantrips. We move quickly to another section called Unbreakable. Some of our cantrips actually help protect Feather, plus we have a number of other spells to protect Feather because she is very centric to the deck. First up for protection, we have Ajani's Presence. Strive. For each target beyond the first, you can pay 2 and white to target another creature. Any number of creatures, the ones you pay for anyway, get 1/1 and gain indestructible till end of turn. Very good to protect Feather with, and it is an instant. Valorous Stance can give our target creature indestructible, but it can also destroy a target creature with toughness 4 or greater, so it could also be very good on the removal side if we really need to get rid of something. Shelter then is a fantastic card in this deck. It gives protection from one color, which can make Feather unblockable. It also draws us a card, so there's another cantrip there. Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes I don't usually see in Feather lists, but I recommend them because once you get them down, they either have to be answered or it's tap, your Feather is protected. Doesn't cost you any mana, and they're really good for getting Feather through on the attack anyway. You do have to be careful though, because protection will prevent you from casting spells targeting your creatures if you choose red or white as the color to protect them from. Other cards that help protect Feather and a number of our other creatures are blink spells like Long Road Home and Ephemerate. Long Road Home does wait till the end of the turn and brings it back with a 1/1 counter. Ephemerate does it immediately, and we can use our replacement effect to replace its replacement effect so we can get it back to our hand sooner than if we wait for it to rebound. Veilstone Amulet gives our creatures hexproof whenever we cast a spell, so that's just fantastic. Dawn Charm and Selfless Squire don't so much protect our creatures necessarily, although Dawn Charm can regenerate one of our creatures. Dawn Charm and Selfless Squire are there much more to protect our own face because Feather usually doesn't field too many creatures, and we're going to need something to prevent some of that combat damage that may be coming our way. Next up we have War Mages, essentially creatures that care about us casting some spells, so let's take a look at these. First up, we have Burning Prophet. Whenever we cast a non-creature spell, including some of the artifacts in the deck, it gets 1/0 until end of turn, and we can scry one, giving us a little bit of card selection off the top. 10th District Legionnaire is largely the same, although it gets a 1/1 counter and we get to scry one. It also has haste, so it's really good to come down early and put a little bit of early game pressure on our opponents. Next we have Stormkiln Artist. It gets 1/0 for each artifact we control, but the real ability here is Magecraft. Whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token. So essentially for our 1 mana cantrips especially, we not only get the card, we get a replacement piece that replaces our mana, and it can be red or white, and for this reason I do like this creature over something like Birgi, God of Storytelling. Next up, we have some creatures that reward us for casting spells. Young Pyromancer is pretty basic here. We only get a 1/1 red elemental creature token every time we cast an instant sorcery spell. Monastery Mentor is the best in the deck. With Prowess, it gets larger for every non-creature spell we cast, and whenever we do cast a non-creature spell, we get a 1/1 white monk creature token with Prowess onto the battlefield, so we could have a fairly sizable army fairly quickly. Another thing I like and added to the deck is Clarence Spirit. Whenever we cast our second spell each turn, which can be fairly easy with Feather, we get a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. This is in the deck because it does make the flying tokens over the groundling tokens, and flying defenses are something that is very valuable. Next up, we have some creatures that care about us casting spells in different sorts of ways. Goer Snipe deals 2 damage to each of our opponents for every instant and sorcery spell we cast. Balefire Liege, on the other hand, is a lord, basically. All other red creatures get 1/1, and all other white creatures get 1/1, thereby making Feather a 5/6, which is pretty good. But whenever we cast a red spell, it deals 3 damage to target player or planeswalker, and whenever we cast a white spell, we gain 3 life. If we cast one that happens to be both, we get a Lightning Helix kind of effect, which is always nice. Mirrorwing Dragon and Zada Hedron Grinder can really up the shenanigan count with our spells. Mirrorwing Dragon in particular says, whenever a player targets it and only it with a spell, instant or sorcery, they copy that spell for each other creature they control that it can target, and then they go to resolve. So casting a murder on Mirrorwing Dragon would wipe out their entire board, so it gives itself a little bit of protection. In our deck, we cast a cantrip or some other kind of protection, and our whole board gets either protected, or we get 5, 6, maybe even 7 cards with the card. Zada Hedron Grinder works a lot the same way Mirrorwing Dragon does, except it only works for us. So if our opponents target it with anything that is beneficial they want to spread to their whole board, it doesn't really work for them at all, it just does it to Zada. However, if we do it, we still get all the same benefits from our cantrip spells, our protection spells, possibly even our blink and evasion spells that give protection. Next up, we have Double Strike, and not in the normal way Boros does it. This time we're talking about getting back our instants and sorceries and possibly casting them again, especially if for some reason Feather goes down or they get countered, because if they don't resolve, they don't come back. Some of that recursion includes Dreadhorde Arcanist, Sun Titan, and Goblin Dark Dwellers. Dreadhorde Arcanist, whenever it attacks, we may cast an instant sorcery card with the converted mana cost, or I guess now mana value, less than or equal to its power from a graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would go to the graveyard, exile it instead. Again, Feather's replacement effect we would get to choose, and we could get it back to our hand if she's also out. It having 1 power isn't too big of a deal, and we can pump it. However, a lot of our cantrips are just CMC 1 or converted mana value or mana value 1, no matter how you want to say that. So it is ridiculously good just about any part of the time, especially if you can just get it out, attack with it, and protect it with something like Ajani's Presence. Then we have Sun Titan, and while it doesn't get back instants or sorceries, it does get back our permanents, namely our commander, Veilstone Amulet, Darrogar Hedgemage, all kinds of nifty things we can get back with the Sun Titan, and with the Blink package in the deck, we can even abuse it a little bit more for things like Terramorphic Expanse. Goblin Dark Dwellers, on the other hand, gets us a instant or sorcery with CMC 3 or less from the graveyard, and we can cast it without paying its mana cost. Again, if it would go to the graveyard otherwise, then it goes into exile, but again, with Feather, we can choose the replacement effect and just get it back. And again, with the Blink package, we could probably just abuse this for a very long time for a very good value. Some other cards to consider, even if they are a little bit random, are Radiant Scroll Wielder, Charmbreaker Devils, and Mavinda, Student's Advocate. The Scroll Wielder in particular gives instant sorcery spells we control lifelink, and we do have some damage dealing ones like Chandra's Ignition in the deck. Otherwise, it says at the beginning of your upkeep, exile an instant sorcery card at random from your graveyard. You may cast it this turn, you do still have to pay the cost though. If a spell cast this way will be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Again, the Feather exception applies. Charmbreaker Devils, at the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand, then you can cast it from your hand, and whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, this card gets 4-0 until end of turn, and it can be a very good game finisher like we saw in game 1 Otherwise, you can make it huge for 4 mana. It could be a 24 and just give it some evasion, and you're whopping somebody real good. Mavinda, Student's Advocate, is a new card from Strixhaven. 2 white, 2/3 flying. 0, you may cast target instant sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If it doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 more to cast. And of course, if it would be put into a graveyard, it gets exiled. You can only activate this ability only once each turn, so feather exclusion aside, this card is fantastic in this deck because we're targeting our own creatures anyway. If we really need to pay that 8, that's fine I guess, but I don't think we're ever going to be using that. I mean, 9 mana for a path? No thank you. However, there are some other spells besides just our cantrips we can cast. Do not slink on targeted board wipes that you can recur from the graveyard to keep your opponents down in the dirt. We already mentioned Chandra's Ignition before. It'll cost 5 from the graveyard with Mavinda, and you can just target one of your creatures. Potentially it has lifelink and blow the board and damage your opponents. Otherwise, Fell the Mighty could be very good, especially if you want to blow up a bunch of huge armies on the other side of the battlefield. Cost 5 from the graveyard. If Feather and Mavinda are both out, you get it right back to your hand to cast again. That's it for this deck tech featuring Feather the Redeemed. You can let me know in the comments what you think about the deck, and if you want the full deck list, there's a link in the description below to check out. A note about the deck list description, however, Mavinda and the Radiant Scroll Wielder are not in the deck list currently because at the time of recording for the last game, they were not yet available on Magic the Gathering Online. That did happen sometime yesterday after I did the recording, so I do highly recommend those cards, and I left a blurb at the bottom of the description to tell you what cards I think you should be able to take out if you want to build the deck in a similar fashion. Of course, I may have missed some awesome includes from Strixhaven to put into Feather. You can let me know about those cards in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this series featuring Feather the Redeemed. Now we're on off to Strixhaven. Which commanders should we cover? Which ones will be awesome? Which ones will be a giant pain in the neck that are combo-y and stuff? The Deans in particular look like a very good challenge for any deck builder, for EDH anyway. In either case, stay safe out there. I'll see you for the next video.